Hey guys, my name is Backflip, and today I want to walk you through the way I think about Backtuck, the way I think about learning Backtuck. And the reason I want to do that is because it's a little different from the way I hear it normally taught. There's certain little things I hear over and over that I think are actually very misleading and incorrect. So I want to go through a few of these things and explain the way that I think about Backtuck, or more or less the way I think it's properly explained when you take out these few small misconceptions or miscommunications. Obviously not everyone explains it the same way, and I'm not implying that this method is like groundbreaking or new in any way, but the amount of times that I hear it explained wrong, in my opinion, is just really overwhelming. So I want to explain the way I think about it, because I think it'll honestly help a lot of people who've been held back purely by a misunderstanding of what they have to do. Keep in mind these tips are specifically for standing backtuck, not necessarily for like a round-off backtuck or backtuck on a trampoline, but the physics I'm going to walk through will apply no matter what, because gravity is gravity. But still, keep that in mind. How many times have you heard the explanation, you want to jump, wait for the peak, then you want to tuck, so you get your maximum height? How many times have you heard that? Every part of that statement is wrong. At minimum, needs to be reworded, but in some cases it actually implies a misunderstanding of the trick if you take it literally, which when someone's explaining it to a newbie, they're pretty much going to take literally what you say. So firstly, I don't think all tutorials are all bad. Most of them do a good job of explaining you to jump up and not arch your back. Any backflip tutorial that introduces you to the hollow body position, or at least emphasizes not to arch your back when you jump, that's one of the most helpful things to start with. But this is where it goes downhill, especially when they use the specific word, wait. So, wait for the peak is commonly what's said. You have to jump, you have to wait for the peak, the apex of the jump, and then you have to tuck. Because otherwise you won't get the maximum height. You have to wait for the top. That's what is always said, right? Now, I want to break down for you exactly why that's factually incorrect and against the laws of physics. The implication that waiting once you've left the ground will get you any more height is incorrect. That's specifically what I'm talking about. So think about it this way. You only have one means of propulsion upwards, and that's jumping off the ground, pushing against the earth with your feet and extending yourself upwards so you can launch your center of gravity upwards. Maybe there's a tiny bit of air resistance and drag going on, but that really doesn't affect it at all for standing tricks like a backtuck. You can't like flap your arms to fly, and also waiting in this position once you've left the ground also falls into that category. It will not get you any more height. Once you've jumped and fully extended through your body, through your knees and toes, and you've reached as high as you can, and you've gotten your center of gravity as high as you can, and once your feet have left the surface of the ground, you've now pretty much programmed your center of gravity, how high you're gonna go. There's nothing you can do. No amount of waiting will actually get your center of gravity to go higher than it would have before. Now, perhaps you can create the illusion of height by doing like a stalled backtuck or something like that, but that's really not what we're talking about. We're talking about getting the height so you can get over and land on your feet safely as somebody who's learning the trick. So this is why when I teach people how to backtuck, I don't instruct them to wait at all. I think once you've left the ground, you should pretty much start tucking right away. But I'm gonna interrupt myself for a second, because the difficulty here is actually knowing the exact point once you've left the ground and then having the fast twitch muscle to snap really tight at that point. Because what'll often happen is you'll start bending your knees even before you fully jumped. That happens all the time. It might even be happening to you and you might not even know it. Because backtuck is pretty easy. Once you can do it and you understand the technique and the feeling of when your knees bring you over, backtuck is actually pretty easy. So it's easy to get into a bad habit of not really jumping and just kind of half jumping and just tucking really fast. What I want you to do is fully jump into the air. Extend all the way through your knees and your ankles, reach up as high as you can into the air, and then the moment your toes truly leave the ground, that's when you'll start to tuck. Now, when you're dealing with beginners, there is some merit in telling them to wait even longer. Wait for the peak, if you will. Because people have a tendency to start tucking even before they've left the ground. But as long as you're truly reaching upwards and setting until your feet leave the ground, once you've left the ground and you've truly jumped as hard as you can, you're not going to go any higher by waiting. You should start engaging your tuck in some form. If you haven't seen my video from a few weeks ago called 1 Exercise to Master Your Backtuck, you should go watch that, because that is essentially one exercise to build up the fast twitch muscle so that you can do your back tuck more easily. If you haven't seen that video yet, go watch it now, because that video will help guide you through the strengthening process of the fast twitch muscle so you can do a back tuck more easily. And then this video is walking you through the timing and my mentality towards a back tuck. Right here, like I said in the other video, right here is the hardest part of a back tuck, because when you jump, you want to be in a really tall position, and then when you tuck, you immediately want to get into a really tight position, the exact opposite position. So it's hard to hit these opposite positions in their extremes. And the more extreme you can hit these positions, the better your back tuck is going to be. The better you can get this extension and fast twitch muscle response in your tuck, this is going to make your back tuck much easier. I think most people, when they're teaching back tuck, emphasize jumping and getting height, and in there they lose the emphasis on a fast tuck, which if you can tuck your legs over fast, that makes it a lot easier than if you can jump high but can't tuck fast, or if you miss that window of getting your knees through. And from personal experience, when I do a back tuck, literally every time I do a back tuck, especially if I'm not in the gym, if I'm wearing shoes and I'm outside, when I do a back tuck, I can jump pretty high, and I don't feel like I have any time to actually wait in the air. It's much more comfortable to jump and then tuck my knees in right away with proper form. Speaking from personal experience, this will be more and more true for beginners. Not only do you not necessarily have enough time when you jump to comfortably wait any amount of time, or to feel like you're actually waiting extended in the air before you tuck, you probably don't have enough time to do that. Because I can jump pretty high and I don't feel like I have time to comfortably pull a stalled back tuck, which is literally what that is. Except when I'm inside the gym and I'm barefoot and warmed up. That's a different story. But for a normal back tuck, when you're trying to maximize your height, you won't be trying to stall in any form. To add to that, if you don't have the fast twitch muscle fiber, and for example, if you haven't done similar exercises to the one that I pointed out in my first video that I mentioned, you actually won't be able to pull your tuck fast enough. So if you've waited in the air, and now you wait for the peak, and now you're at the peak, and now you're gonna actually start pulling the tuck, it's gonna be far too late, and that's gonna be really tough. So pretty much what I like to do is jump, make sure you fully set, you're fully tall until the moment you leave the ground, and then you start pulling your tuck, and then you want to have pulled your tuck and be tight at the apex of the jump. So you don't want to start pulling there. You want to be already tucked at that point so you can flip and see the ground. And that way you have more time to spot your landing and you can come out of it more comfortably, instead of having stalled on the way up and then tucking and landing it low. It's actually crazy how often I hear people telling other people to wait when they jump, and they jump into the air and they say, now wait for the peak and then tuck. I hear it so often, and it's not helpful at all. I really don't think it's a helpful piece of advice. Even the word wait is like a passive command. I would rather see that word replaced with the word extend. So especially if you're dealing with a beginner, they're not just thinking to wait or stall. They're thinking extend, and they're extending through their body until the moment they tuck. That would be better than the mentality of waiting at any point in this trick. In fact, in my experience with almost all tricks, you shouldn't really have any points where you're waiting for anything to happen. You should be actively moving your body through the trick to the next point of motion to get yourself through the trick. Waiting, in a sense, passively waiting in any body position is not really what you'd ever want to do at any point in a trick. Unless you've got a lot of height and you're coming out of your trick and you can spot the ground and you're just waiting to land, then in that case, technically you'd probably be able to squeeze another twist in there or put some more variations in there, right? So if you're tricking at your maximum, there should be no real waiting. You should always be able to squeeze something in there or complete the trick faster. The problem a lot of people run into when they try to tuck right away is that they actually interrupt their set by starting to tuck, meaning they haven't even left the ground yet and they're already starting to bend their knees, but you need to be pushing through your knees in order to jump. So the fast twitch muscle requirement to go fully extended and then fully tight is actually pretty difficult, especially when you're just learning the trick. That's why sometimes it's helpful to think jump, extend, even once you're in the air, and then tuck at the top. That can be helpful to program your body to do the right thing. But once you're fast enough and strong enough in these positions to pull the tuck at exactly the moment you want, and once you've gained that awareness, you might agree with me that there's no real waiting in the air. That once you've left the ground, if you start to engage the hollow body and then pull your knees in, that'll be a lot easier than actually staying extended in the air and then trying to pull the tuck once you've hit the peak. Now, some of you may say I'm maybe taking the instruction too literally, but how else am I supposed to take it, especially if I'm a beginner? Or if somebody's a beginner hearing this info, they're gonna say, okay, jump, wait, and then tuck. So if any of you guys disagree with the way I teach this trick or think I'm misunderstanding some of the concepts, please let me know, because I do want to know, and I will comment back if you leave me a comment. So don't be afraid to let me know what you're thinking. I really want to hear it. But I honestly think the reason people say this all the time is simply because we repeat what we've been taught. That's the main reason. And then a secondary reason is it kind of makes sense. But if you really want to get your back tuck to the next level, or if you have a fast muscle response and if you feel like you're waiting too long, it's quite possible that you actually are waiting too long. And you want to jump fully through your whole body, get your center of gravity up as high as you can, and then essentially start to engage your hollow body and bring up your knees so that your knees can hit your shoulders right at the peak. That's not when you start the tuck, it's where you want to be tucked and have the majority of the rotation happen so you can come out of it nice and high, spot your landing, and land safely. If you still don't believe me, I want you to go and watch all the videos of the standing double backs that have been landed. There's quite a few now, there's like 6 or 7. Essentially a standing double backflip would be the ultimate backflip, is it not? It has ultimate height and ultimate rotation, perfectly balanced to give you maximum efficiency in jumping and flipping your body backwards, right? In fact, it's such an efficient backflip that you flip twice, standing double backflip. So if you watch anyone who can do a standing double backflip, they jump, they extend, and they pull their knees in right away. And at the peak, they squeeze in 2 twists, essentially. If you can't jump as high, and if you're not quite as strong, you'll still essentially use the same technique as a standing double back, but you might not go twice around. Maybe you'll just go once around. But a standing double back, in my opinion, is a perfected backflip. I mean, if you take somebody who can do a standing double back, and you put like an 80-pound weight vest on him, and he attempts a standing double back, he'll probably just end up doing a really good back tuck. I really want to drill in this concept of extending, jumping fully through your knees before you tuck. Because when you start to bring that tuck in earlier and earlier, you might actually outpace your set. Again, if you haven't seen my first back tuck video, that goes through this concept in more detail and gives you the perfect exercise to work on it. So go check that out. Is it possible to pull your tuck too early or too fast? I don't think so. The only instance in which you're pulling it too quickly is if you haven't fully jumped and you haven't left the ground and you're already starting to bend your knees when you haven't fully pushed through them yet. The reason I bring this up is because that actually happened to me. My back tuck was actually pretty good when I first learned it, and then it actually went downhill for like a couple years. And I didn't really know why, and I wasn't really just recording my back tuck at all. So I recorded it one day and I looked at it, and it was just awful. I wasn't extending through my back tuck. I was basically half jumping and half tucking, but I could jump pretty high, and I understood the timing, so it just worked out. I was just being lazy with it. But if you want a really good back tuck, and if you can't jump as high naturally and you really need to jump as hard as you can and tuck as hard as you can for this trick, you're gonna wanna understand these concepts of setting tall, and then the moment you leave the ground, starting to engage that tuck so you can tuck early and give yourself more time to land. Oh. Gus, I'm sorry to wake you up, buddy. We have to give the people what they want. They want you. They want you, Gus. Thank you guys for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for supporting this channel. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're liking the content, and let me know what you want to see. If there's any concepts you want me to talk about, please let me know. Good luck training your back tucks, guys. Send me some videos. Find me on Instagram. Send me some videos and I'll send you some tips. I'm sorry if it takes me a while to get back to you, but I promise I'm going to try my best. Yeah, thanks again, guys, and I'll see you next time. Oh.